Welcome in, everybody, to Meet Me at the Coffee Pot podcast. We're going to do a little NBA trade rumors and NBA action today as it's heating up before the free agency period, right after the draft. We got Gene Merryman here, NFL draft guru, but also NBA insider. So he's a man of many skills, and we brought him in here today. He's gonna break down some of the moves that made today, and I don't know if you can tell, but we might have a bit of a Pacers slant to this recording as we are both diehard Pacer fans, and we'll see where it goes. So, how you doing, Gene?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Will. Thanks for having me on. It's
Yeah,
been a
dude.
long time coming.
Yeah,
I've been invited multiple times.
Gene was on the original podcast from 2016 that now doesn't exist. It only exists in our memories. But
I am
I
a
had
long time
Gene
listener.
on and I had a presidential candidate on. So between the two of those guests, it was a pretty, that podcast made some waves, but we're back here in Meet Me at the Coffee Pot, and we're gonna get into it here. So tell me about some of the moves that were made today, Gene, and kind of thing, the splashes that have been made around the league. What you see causing
Well,
some waves.
there's a lot of money getting thrown around. I think the Detroit Pistons are very active. I
I
wouldn't
feel
say
like the
it's
Detroit Pistons have signed 7 forwards.
yeah. And so far, there's rumors going around about a potential sign and trade, but those are just rumors, like everything in Twitter these days, unless Woj and Sham report it. But yeah, it's hard to tell what the Pistons have been doing. I like what they drafted. I thought Sadiq Bey is a good prospect. Um, they also got Killian Hayes as a point guard. But they're in a very interesting situation, maybe a rebuilding state for that franchise.
You think they're trying to unload the Blake effect? The Blake effect snow, dude?
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's really hard to tell with all these massive max deals that people have these days. I wouldn't think they would be movable, but somehow they get moved.
Dude,
So
it's like the salary cap is just a suggestion nowadays. In across all the leagues, it's like if you want the player, you figure out a way to make the move.
yep. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, like Horford, Al Horford got moved to the Thunder. I
Yep.
thought that was a good move by the Sixers. I think so
Cap
far it's
dump.
early, but there's a lot of winners, early winners in free agency in the draft. So
All right, so let's go through some of the moves that Shams and Woj have been reporting on today, and kind of take it from there. And I actually didn't see this one. De'Aaron Fox agreed to the 5-year, $163 million max extension with a clause to reach the super max
that's a lot of money.
by the Kings.
It's interesting,
Man,
these
those
max deals. Oh,
those small man, I'm a as a fan of small market teams. It's interesting when you see a signing like that because it's classic, like you kind of have to, you know what I mean? Like if you hit on a
yeah.
draft pick who's like anything above average, like you don't have a choice. I think of it a lot like this is going to be a total reference that nobody gets, but the Sabres got Jeff Skinner, the Sabres in the NHL. They got Jeff Skinner 2 years ago and he had a career year, and it was like, were you going to let him walk? Like, you're the Buffalo Sabres. You absolutely have to sign him. And so you have to give him a big contract. And I feel like that's just like what happens when small market teams find some talent. If it's a super max, you have to pay. And so it looks like, De'Aaron Fox is a good player, but he's going to be in Sacramento for a long time. Sacramento and Orlando, I don't know if it's just me, but Sacramento and Orlando feel like the two teams that like any star could go to and get paid whatever they want forever.
Yeah, yeah, lots of money. I mean, I'd have to look at their cap sheet, but it's interesting. They could go there, but they don't attract free agents like
It's
you
hard.
would expect. Same with the Hornets.
Same with the
You would,
Hornets. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Wes Matthews is going to the Lakers. Did you see that?
I like that. I
I
like
think
that.
that's
He
a
was
great
a
signing by the Lakers.
former Pacer, half season, I think. He was a
Yeah,
pickup. I think he was a
played well for us.
yeah, a good energy boost. Yeah, I think he came in and provided a good spark when Depot went out. He was able to get the Pacers to a first round exit.
He led them to a first round exit, so he might as well put him in the rafters.
Hey, it's consistency. That's key. That's key.
Yeah.
I like what the Lakers are doing.
Me too.
You know, they got Harrell from the Clippers.
Montrezl Harrell
Yep. You know, that's really interesting.
on a
Just
bargain.
going, yeah,
2 years,
yeah.
19 million.
Going from the Lakers to the Clippers. You know, that's going from the Clippers to the Lakers. Got that reversed. It's really interesting because there's all those rumors about locker room drama in the Clippers.
Which you got to think, if a guy's willing to go next door for 2 years, 19 million, is he was a 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
You got to think that there was some motivation to leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing, though. It's kind of easy for him, too. I mean, it's, you know, scooting over the next locker room. Same time, though, it's like, you know, is there truly a rival? I mean, is there an LA rivalry? I don't know. I mean, do the Clippers and Lakers like hate each other? I don't think so.
Twitter ruined all the rivalries, dude. Everyone's friends.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Miami Heat secured their point guard for the next couple of years. Goran Dragic has agreed to a 2-year, $37.4 million deal to re-sign with the Miami Heat. I mean, he's an above average point guard who's key to what they're trying to do there. So, you know, he got paid quite handsomely for 2 years, and they don't have to worry about their starting point guard for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know Miami is focusing on getting the group back together. I know Myers Leonard re-signed, and then you got Dragic. But I believe I don't know if the details have come out yet on those contracts. But I would not be surprised if there's a player option or a team, some sort of option on that second year, because I think they're looking towards 2021. Mm-hmm. They want to keep that space open for the big free agent spending. You know, there's some top superstars going to be free agents then. And I think Miami's going to be in the hunt for those guys. But yeah, I think Dragic is a great point guard. I think he fits the culture of what Miami's trying to do, or what they have been doing. So I think it's a good fit. It's good to see guys get rewarded and stay, you know, with the team like Miami.
Yeah, and if you're Goran Dragic, you know that's a decent payday for your skill level, and you're in a good situation there in Miami. You might as well ride that as long as you can.
And he's old too. I think he's 30. He's up there, probably mid-30s. But it's a good get him back there and see what happens. I mean, could Miami bring the group back and get to the finals again? I guess.
Yeah, he's 34.
Yeah.
So probably spend the last high-level years, you know, of his career with Miami trying to make a title run.
Well, I believe he came off the bench there. Kendrick Nunn started, and then Dragic came off the bench for most of the year. And I think when it came down to the bubble season, he ended up moving into the starting lineup. So good for Miami.
Yay. Yeah, you're right. He actually only he only started 3 regular season games.
Yep.
This last year.
Yeah, it looks like a couple other free agent signings. Marcus Morris is returning to the Clippers. I mean, he was a trade deadline acquisition by the Clippers. Gave up a first-round pick to the Knicks. I think gave up Mo Harkless as well. So they bring him back. The Clippers are trying to get the group back together. I think they might be looking for a point guard very soon. But we'll see. I mean, they got some moves to make. They got Ty Lue running the show now. So
I wonder how you wonder how much input. You wonder how much input he has on the Clippers, because it was all, you know, it was always assumed with the Cavaliers he didn't have much input at all, because it was kind of LeBron's team. And so it's actually kind of interesting. He's won an NBA championship. He's obviously a capable coach, but you got to think the X's and O's are more on him now this time. But you know, we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, it's really interesting because comparing both teams, the Cavs and the Clippers, you know, the Cavs had a point guard in LeBron, and he was running the show. And I don't think the Clippers have a guy like that. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's a great player. Same with Paul George, but I think they need a floor general.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, especially with the kind of like, I don't want to mischaracterize this. Both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard kind of have like not the, well, I guess you said it in a good way, not the floor general kind of type of mentality. Like
Yep.
they're more gonna like look for their spots, but if someone can come in and facilitate for them and like enhance, make them better, I think that's probably the kind of guy they're gonna look for.
Yeah, it kind of just brings me back to Kawhi's days in Toronto. I mean, Kyle Lowry, he's a good player. He's a leader. He's a locker room leader. And I think Fred VanVleet's the same way. Getting those two guys to complement Kawhi Leonard was huge for that Raptors team. So I think we'll see if the Clippers address that in free agency or not. Still plenty of good prospects or good free agents out there for the Clippers to pick from.
Dwight Howard signed, I don't see it here in front of me, but if I remember earlier, he signed a 1-year deal with the 76ers to back up Joel Embiid.
Yep.
Yeah,
it
gives you depth. He's still got some years left in him, I guess.
Yep, I like what the Sixers are doing, not only from the free agent route, but also from the front office perspective. They pulled in a former Pacer exec, and then also a couple Pacers coaches. So they're bringing that Pacers culture to Philly with them.
Yeah, you want to talk real quick about the Pacers turnover on their coaching staff and kind of how that went down?
Yeah, definitely. Pacers went out and hired a Raptors assistant, Nate Bjorkgren. Innovative. That's the talk on the streets.
Kind of hoping to pick up a Nick Nurse type. I think is
That's the new thing these days. Picking up the like the flavor of the month.
It's like the flavor of the month in the NFL was Sean McVay,
Yep.
And now it's like the flavor of the month in the NBA is to like get Nick Nurse.
Yep.
So I hope it works out.
Yeah. And that's the thing though. Like I think a lot of the stuff I've seen on the D League. I know now it's called the G League, but in the D League days, there's a lot of prominent assistants that are moving up into the coaching ranks from their D League days. Yeah, it's good because I think Nate Bjorkgren in one of his press conferences he made a comment about how in the D League there's so much roster turnover that you have to game plan and coach like minute by minute, play by play pretty much in the D League because there could be guys getting called up or going overseas and whatnot. And so you just have to coach with what you have. And so I think any amount of success in the D League can show versatility and flexibility with coaching.
And at that level, and at that level, it's like your leadership as the head coach is going to matter more. The stakes aren't particularly high in the G League, but it's like when you're the head coach there, it's like you're going to have more influence on like the actual game than when you go up to the NBA level and you have superstars and you're kind of more like a facilitator and making sure everyone's happy kind of thing. And so, if you can have success in the G League, it's showing that it actually does matter when you can come to the NBA. So hopefully that works out for the Pacers. But like you mentioned, it's a complete overhaul of the staff. And a lot of the longtime Pacers assistant coaches have found work elsewhere.
Yep.
Which
the great Dan Burke is off to Philly.
I'm going to miss him. I don't know if he's still my Twitter banner or not, but I'm going to miss him. No, he's not. But, he was for a long time. The defensive guru. So hopefully he doesn't make Philadelphia too good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know him and Joel Embiid have had their history. That's for sure.
Right.
So I think hopefully the game will bring them together and winning will, cure the issues.
Derrick Jones Jr. lands a 2-year deal with Portland.
High flyer.
High flyer. Have fun in the dunk competition, I guess, but it adds depth.
Yeah, I feel like the Blazers are loading up on wings. I think they got there's a couple other players I saw they acquired. They acquired Robert Covington.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Gave up 2 first-round picks. I don't know what the protections are, how late they are, if they're like 10 years from now or 2050. But 2 first-round picks those are pretty good assets.
The Thunder have like 16 first-round picks, so
Yeah, it's
we'll see what
interesting
happens with
because
that.
you can acquire. I mean, it's kind of the question of quality and quantity when it comes to draft picks, and the NBA is like a superstar league, so it's like you got to hit on some of the. I mean, it gives the fan base hope, that's for sure, sells hope, but at the same time though, you gotta hit on those draft picks and get talent in there.
Man, it's hard in the NBA to hit after like 15.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. That's the thing though. I mean, there's always success stories. I mean, you got Jimmy Butler, who was outside the lottery, late first. Giannis was middle of the first round.
Donovan Mitchell
Yeah,
went
yeah.
in the 20s.
Devin Booker outside the top 10.
Draymond Green,
Draymond Green.
second round.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
no.
every
Yeah,
team.
and to make a run, especially with a team like the Pacers, we talk about all the time. And to make a run, it feels like you have to hit on one of those
Yeah,
because I mean
yeah,
the Pacers are never in the lottery. It's the biggest criticism of the Pacers. They're always good. They've never been great.
yeah.
They haven't been great. They haven't been great since this was their logo, which is the ABA, by the way. So it's tough. Every year the Pacers are picking in the 20s, and it's like or the high teens, and so it's like you have to hit on one of those picks
Yeah.
at least every now and then to actually make a run.
Well, their success rate in the lottery the past couple of years have been impressive. I mean, Miles Turner is a productive player. Then you have playoff P. They drafted him. They drafted him in the lottery.
Yeah.
And they I think I feel like the situation they're in is very unique in terms of roster construction. They have to approach it different ways. I mean, I don't think tanking necessarily works.
It's also not a fan base that would be down.
Yeah, yeah. I think.
I mean, I think a huge portion of the fan base is like would way rather you be good every year and lose in the first or second round than like tank and make a run. It's just the way it is in Indiana.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think 10 first-round picks would sell hope.
No.
I think winning games, not in Indiana.
No, winning 48 games sells hope.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then maybe taking 1 or 2 games in the first round, which has been a while.
And that can buy a head coach in Indiana a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of time. But yeah, I like they've had a quiet day so far. I mean, nothing official, but it's been no official news coming out from the Pacers.
So let's get into that. So let's get into that. Biggest Pacers rumors are surrounding Gordon Hayward. So yep. Gordon Hayward opted out of $34 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed with Boston. He is a free agent right now. He had the player option. He opted out. And so it's obvious that he's going to be looking for a longer term deal to recoup that loss because he's not a $34 million player right now. And so to walk away from that, he's going to be looking for a long-term deal somewhere that he thinks he's a good fit. And we got Gene back there. So there's been talk about the Knicks having a ton of cap space, maybe making a run at him. In the very beginning, there was talk about the Hawks maybe making a run at him. But I believe the Hawks just signed Danilo Gallinari to a $60 million deal. I'll check on that. But I don't know. Let's get into it. Let's get into it for our diehard Pacer fans out there. Let's talk Gordon Hayward to the Pacers. And let's talk scenarios. If you guys don't know, Gordon Hayward went to Brownsburg High School in Indianapolis, which is in the same conference as the high school we went to. At Noblesville High School, the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. So we saw him play in high school. He's a year older than us. He went to Butler. He led Butler to back-to-back national championship appearances, which for a small school like Butler, they lost in the finals to UConn and to Duke, right? So like huge deal to lead the local high school team and then the local college team. and there's a lot of appeal around the local Hoosier coming back and making a run with the NBA team. So
Yep.
I think there's a lot of people in the fan base that want it, and I would be lying if I said I didn't want it, but don't know if it's the greatest fit. So tell me about some of the rumors around Gordon Hayward going to the Pacers, what the Celtics are looking for in a sign and trade, and kind of your thoughts on the roster situation.
Yeah, I mean, like you said it best, Gordon Hayward's definitely out there. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
You're good. We
Battery
got
was
you
low.
back.
Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely options out there with the Pacers acquiring Gordon Hayward. I think I think many fans, definitely Pacer fans, are kind of mixed. I think in terms of a roster fit, I think you can make it work. I think the Pacers could make it work, but I think it depends on what salary you have to send out and depending on the players you send out. And I think with the new culture coming in with Nate Bjorkgren and how they want to play and the style of play, I guess you can look at it as giving up on some players because we don't know, for example, how a Miles Turner would look in a new system under a new coach. And so that's kind of one of the things you have to consider when making a move like this. And plus, considering the age of Gordon Hayward, 30 years old. And then also you have to consider the money that he's be looking at as well. So there might be, I don't know if there's such thing as a hometown discount because people throw that term around a lot, but
Right.
I don't think a hometown discount is something you want to throw around like that. So plus a guy who turned down $34 million. So he has to feel comfortable there's something out there. So maybe his agent knows something.
Right.
But overall, I think, does it make the Pacers better with Gordon Hayward on their roster? It definitely does. But the question is, what would you have to give up to do that?
So real quick, I mentioned earlier Danilo Gallinari, $61.5 million free agent contract to the Atlanta Hawks. So I think, at least in some people's minds, they may be more out of the running for Gordon Hayward. So you mentioned earlier, it's like it pointed out, when you said give up on a player is kind of what you kind of have to do in order to get Gordon Hayward. And that's the problem with it, because there's some rumors about what Danny Ainge is asking for in a sign and trade. And really there's three players on the Pacers where you would put kind of in the we're giving up on them category, because you don't really know their full potential yet, especially with the new coaching staff. That's Miles, Aaron Holiday, and Goga. And it's just like you're right. It would be really, we talked about it earlier today. It would be really tough to give up on one of those players before realizing what we think could be their full potential and then strengthening the Celtics.
Yeah.
And so it's like that is a tough decision, even though, for the immediate future, you could recognize that maybe adding Gordon Hayward to the roster would be a really good move and, make them more competitive for 1 year. But it's like, are you going to give up Goga, who's 21 years old and is like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you make those decisions.
Well, that's the tough part because, considering where the Pacers are right now, they haven't made it out of the first round in I don't know how many years. So it's like, is it one of those things where you bank on development? We haven't done that in a while. You know what I mean?
I think it was harder to do under the old coaching staff too, because Nate McMillan was not super interested in playing young guys. He wasn't interested in playing rookies. He loved vets, and they gave him tons of playing time. And so it was it's kind of, even though some of these guys have been on the team for years, it's almost like you still don't really feel like what their ceiling is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you invest in potential or do you invest in an all-star right now? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'll tell you that.
And that's why Kevin Pritchard makes the big money to make those decisions.
I know. So we got to trust in KP, president of the Pacers.
We can only go off rumors. But yeah, it's really interesting. They're in an interesting situation. They don't have the money to spend like they normally, they would. They're close to the tax threshold. I know they're over the cap.
Right. And part of that, right, was because after COVID and everything, it actually, the cap actually got lowered by a couple $1 million because the revenues were down based off what they thought they were going to be. So all of a sudden, everyone got a lot closer to going over into the luxury tax than they were before.
Yeah, the numbers overall, I mean, I don't know the specifics behind where if it lowered or whatnot, but I know teams are more aware of the financial impact of the pandemic. So, I think more teams are aware of, they can't going into the year. I think they expected they maybe had a little bit more wiggle room, but now short term and long term, it's a lot different.
Trying to see if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that up. I don't believe the cap actually went down, but it did not go up as expected based off of having a normal NBA season. And so I think kind of, a lot of front offices were kind of planning in advance with the money they thought they were going to get, and then they didn't end up getting it type deal.
Yep, there's a lot of there's not many teams out there that have enough money to spend this year. I know there's a couple teams still out there looking to spend. I know the Hawks. I think the Hawks might still have some money. I know they signed Gallinari.
The Knicks.
They got a shooter, and then you got the Knicks, who they declined a bunch of some team friendly contracts recently, so they freed up a lot of money. So who knows what they're gonna start doing.
They got their draft pick too, so they're gonna be looking to build around him.
Yeah, and they got Coach Thibodeau. He'll probably play those guys upwards of 30 plus minutes a game, and not play any just play all the starters like he did he did that in Chicago, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
that was one of the complaints. He played Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Carlos Boozer, all those guys, long minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe he's learned. He's had a couple coaching stops along the way. So, and I know he's a Knicks guy. He's a New York Knick. I think that was his dream job.
I kind of like him. I think he's a pretty good coach.
Yeah. He came from that. I think he was part of the Boston Celtics championship team with Doc Rivers and Garnett. I think he was an assistant. So I think that's kind of where the Chicago Bulls pulled him from, was the Celtics. I could be wrong on that, but
the Bulls have been pretty quiet so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, Chicago. I mean, it's like one of those places you think would be a free agent destination, but when was the last time they signed a tier 1 or, a tier 2 free agent? I mean, they had
long time.
I mean, I remember they had Carlos Boozer. They acquired him, or they signed him.
I think a lot of their fan base was hoping that Anthony Davis was going to be the savior, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, take that, come home for a hometown discount.
The hometown discount.
Yeah.
I don't think, that's not as much as a real thing as people would like to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, you only see that on Twitter and, the Twitter upside down, NBA Twitter world.
Bradley Beal is trending on Twitter right now.
Yeah, I heard there's some John Wall rumors going around about
the most unmovable contract in NBA history, John Wall.
Yeah. And there's quite a few of them. I thought Al Horford's contract was immovable, but it got moved. I guess it just depends on what you pair with it.
The report coming out right now, John Wall was reportedly, quote, shocked to find out the Wizards were building around Bradley Beal. Wall requests a trade. The Wizards have chatted with the Rockets on a potential Westbrook swap.
2 immovable contracts swapping. It's, it's kind of best of both worlds there. Kind of help each other out.
Yeah, I don't know how much Westbrook helps the Wizards. I think John Wall might have a bigger impact on somewhere else that he moves to, but I don't know, man. It's tough to envision Westbrook working with any other ball dominant player like Bradley Beal. Which I like Russell Westbrook, and I don't mean to criticize him unfairly, but it's like if you can't shoot and you're ball dominant, you can't hit threes in 2020 and you're a ball dominant player, it's just not gonna work in the long term.
Yeah, I just think it just causes issues on the court.
Huge issues.
huge issue. So, I think he does bring a lot to the game, though. I think his energy, his rebounding ability, his playmaking, and I think he's a good defender too. But yeah, not being able to shoot for his position, that's alarming.
It worked 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Doesn't work
it's
now.
interesting because you wonder if Derrick Rose would have been like that if he would have stayed healthy, because he
Yeah,
wasn't
the
much of a
Derrick Rose
shooter.
saga is a real shame.
Yeah, he sold the Chicago fan base hope.
Oh yeah.
Lots of hope.
I mean, he was, like we said, they hadn't had a tier 1 free agent, but like he was a draft pick who came in that they nailed. I mean, they can't anticipate him getting hurt, so they totally nailed that pick coming
Yeah.
out of Memphis and playing in the 2007 NCAA championship. And it's just too bad that he could never stay healthy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he was MVP he got MVP his second or third year in the league, I think.
I think 2010. I think his third year.
Remember, he took on, I think his rookie year, he took on the Pacers in the playoffs first round. And I remember Jeff Foster gave him a good old hard playoff foul when he was driving to the lane. It's on YouTube. It's a good highlight.
No big deal, but I have bagged Jeff Foster's groceries before at Marsh, which is a supermarket in, well, at least it used to be a supermarket in central India.
Yep. It's no longer in Noblesville, that's for sure.
So, 2011. He won it.
Wow.
He's 2010, 2011.
MVP he's been on multiple stops. So he goes from Chicago to New York, Cleveland,
Detroit.
I think he was in Utah for like an hour.
Was he?
Yeah, I think he was part of. There's like the massive trade. Remember, it was the trade deadline with the Cavs when they completely like turned over their roster and they still made it to the finals. They got George Hill. They moved out. It was the summer. So the summer they acquired Isaiah Thomas, and they had like Jay Crowder. Then that offseason, and then that midseason, they turned it all over. They got Rodney Hood, George Hill, and they went all in.
It must not have been official because he's listed here as the Bulls, Knicks, Cavs, Timberwolves, Pistons. I don't know, it might have been one of those deals where he kind of was, but never actually was.
Yeah, maybe he was like waived or something. Or
all right, so
out.
February 8th, 2018, Rose was acquired by the Utah Jazz in a 3-team trade. 2 days later, he was waived. Okay, you're right. He was there for like 7 hours. Good call. Good memory by you.
Thanks.
The Derrick Rose Insider, the official Derrick Rose Insider of the Meet Me at the Coffee Pot podcast.
Yep. The one and only.
All right, so I want your final thoughts, at least final thoughts. We don't have to be done, but at least final thoughts on the Pacers. What do you want to see happen, especially regarding the Gordon Hayward situation? As a Pacers fan and an NBA insider.
I don't think it's possible to acquire Gordon Hayward without sending out contracts that we want to keep.
That's
like
true.
Like Miles Turner. So for that reason, I think the Pacers should maybe look elsewhere to upgrade the roster.
Now, you mentioned to me earlier in a text conversation that you had a hot take that you think maybe Bogdan Bogdanović, who was initially thought to be part of a sign and trade to Milwaukee, that fell through, and also maybe have gotten some teams in some hot water for some tampering. But anyway, long story short, he's on the market.
Yep.
And you thought he might end up a Pacer.
This was a very bold prediction. There was nothing there's no rumors or speculation.
I haven't seen. You're the first person I saw a rumor from.
This is just pure gut and instincts. I'm not stealing credit from anyone. It's just from what I was feeling, it seems like a good fit.
I think it is a good fit basketball-wise.
Because I think, if you look at it, if it's a sign and trade situation, what the Kings supposedly agreed to from the Milwaukee standpoint, I think the Pacers could do better in terms of structuring some sort of package to acquire Bogdanovich. So, you never know. I think if you're giving up assets, you probably want to acquire somebody within the same like time window in terms of age. And I think Bogdanovich is just turned 28 years old. So he's younger than Hayward. And I think he would fit into the window of the current roster.
I also just don't know. I hate to like give up on a guy who got hurt, but like TJ Lamb had a brutal knee injury. I mean, he tore pretty much everything up in your knee you possibly could.
Yeah.
And Bogdanovich could be a replacement for Lamb at that, 3 spot. 6'6", Bogdanovich 6, like you said, he's 28 years old. He's 6'6", 220. He's shooting 37% from 3-point. I mean, he could fill that role.
I mean, NBA insiders were raving about him when, the supposed trade to Milwaukee happened, and they were raving about him, saying he's a clutch player. He has good defense. He fits what they want to do. He's young, so I think he would be a good fit. I think from the wing perspective, Pacers might have to shuffle some things around, see who wants to come off the bench and who starts. But yeah, I think I like the fit. I really like the fit.
Well, I haven't seen that anywhere except our text conversation. But if that comes through, first of all, I'd like it. Second of all, I have to give you some serious credit.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, you never know though. I mean, if it doesn't happen, if it does, it is what it is. But it would be something I'd like to see.
All right, man. Do you have any final thoughts of the draft, the free agency moves that have been reported today, or just some of the rumors that have been going around?
Well, I'd like to call out a couple of winners so far. I think the Sixers. I like what the Sixers are doing. I like what the Grizzlies are doing. I think the Grizzlies are accumulating young assets, tradable assets. I think that's key. And I think they're doing a really good job of bringing in undrafted free agents. I think last year they got John Conchar from IPFW. Is that called IPFW anymore?
I think so. Is it not? What would they call it?
I think it's something else now. But yeah, he's from the Fort Wayne area.
Oh, you're right. It's just called. Oh no, it is. Oh no, it's not. Hold on, I'm on it. Keep going. I'm sorry.
They also got Killian Tilly, that stretch 4 from Gonzaga. So, they're doing a really good job scooping up undrafted free agents. And they also
they got a superstar to build around.
Yeah, and they got Brandon Clark last year. They have Deron Jackson. I believe they drafted Xavier Tillman. He's a versatile forward from Michigan State who's known for his defense. And they got Desmond Bain. He's a wing from TCU. He's actually from Indiana.
So speaking of Indiana, it is just now Purdue University Fort Wayne. Purdue completely took it over, so now it's just a Purdue satellite campus.
Wow.
Which is actually interesting. They're gold and black. But they're still the Mastodons, which is kind of interesting. Interesting to nobody but us, but
Well, yeah, if you go watch John Conchar highlights when he was there, he put up good numbers. He was like a walking triple double almost. So he was a really good player for them. They knocked off Indiana twice, I believe, at IPFW, and then at Assembly Hall, I believe. So
yeah, it's huge to be able to, if you can hit on an undrafted free agent, it's huge to building towards the future, especially when you have a superstar like John Morant. You can surround him with depth from that you acquired from undrafted free agents. I mean, it's what the smaller market teams absolutely have to do,
That's the thing, though. It kind of goes back to what Toronto did, kind of like the same blueprint where you continue to just draft well. Like they drafted Jakob Portal. They had DeMar DeRozan. They had a point guard from Utah, DeLon Wright. They were drafting really good players that were contributing. And it got to the point where, they could, they were able to make a move to go get a disgruntled player like Kawhi, and it made the difference. And then they were also able to go get Marc Gasol. So they went all in that year to win it all because they had the pieces to do it, which is really cool to see. And I think a lot of teams need to look in. I mean, it's almost impossible to mimic, and have the success, but I think people need to consider that as a blueprint as opposed to tanking.
Especially when you can get the Nick Nurse of the future.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a difference too. He was already on their staff too. So they knew how good he was, which is really cool. So.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. You can follow us at @coffeepot, send in questions or interact with us there. You want to shout out your Twitter?
Let's see. I think it's at GPM412. If not, hopefully it's linked to this tweet out YouTube podcast video.
Yeah, we'll definitely put you in the link. And other than that, thanks for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Free agency starts the 22nd, right? Like officially, where like things can be signed on the dotted line, the 22nd, I believe.
Yep.
So a lot's gonna happen between then and now, So maybe next week we'll have to have you back in here and we'll break it all down.
Yep, certainly. I've heard good things about the NFL pick episodes, so I've been tuning in, so you guys can see my comments out there on YouTube. But I'll.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into those. Those have been going pretty good.
And one of these days, I'll have to hop on there.
We'll have to get you on there because as much insider knowledge as you just demonstrated about the NBA, I'm pretty sure you know more about the NFL, which is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's equal knowledge. We'll see.
All right. Well, until then, we'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks.
All right.